I was looking for a place to sit when the alien Empress took my hand and said, "Sit next to me." The grand hall of Veloria Prime's interstellar diplomatic hub stretched endlessly above him, its ceiling glimmering with the light of hundreds of floating lanterns that reflected off polished surfaces and mirrored floors. Each lantern seemed alive, glowing softly, casting colors that shifted from blue to gold as if they were breathing. Alien dignitaries moved gracefully through the crowd, their forms varied and strange, yet elegant in ways Eli had never imagined. He adjusted the strap of his small satchel and felt his stomach twist. This was his first time attending an event like this, not as a tourist, but as a xenobiologist representing humanity. Eli's work on alien plant symbiosis had earned him an invitation, a rare honor, but now, surrounded by beings with shapes and motions so different from his own, he felt uncomfortably small. His eyes darted from one group to another. A creature with 4 arms and iridescent wings whispered with a reptilian-looking official. Another with a translucent body shimmered like liquid crystal as it moved past. Eli had been told to sit at a table with other human delegates, but when he approached, he realized every seat was taken. The humans were already engaged in conversation, and the table felt closed off, a little island surrounded by the sea of alien culture he so wanted to understand. He stepped back and wandered toward the center of the hall, hoping to find a free chair. He had to remind himself to breathe. He was no stranger to being in new environments, but this was different. This was the center of intergalactic diplomacy, where decisions could affect entire worlds. A misplaced word or gesture here could leave a permanent mark, or worse, make him an embarrassment to humanity. Eli finally spotted an empty space near a large, elevated platform. The platform itself was beautiful beyond description. It curved like a crescent moon, suspended above the main floor by beams of glowing energy. Atop it, figures moved with calm authority, clearly dignitaries, but their presence carried something more, an aura of quiet power. Eli's gaze lingered on one of them. Then he heard a voice, soft but firm, behind him. "Looking for a seat, are you?" Eli jumped slightly and turned. The figure before him seemed almost to float. She was taller than most humans he had seen, but not overwhelmingly so. Her skin shimmered faintly, like light reflected through water. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and seemed to change color as she looked at him, cycling through shades of green and violet. She moved with grace in multiple, flowing movements, each one seemingly independent yet harmonious with the others. Yes," Eli managed to say, his voice a little too quiet. A small smile curved her lips, though it was not quite human. "Then come with me. There is space next to me." Her hand extended toward him, delicate yet certain. It was a gesture that carried no threat, only confidence and expectation. Eli stared for a moment, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Next to you?" he asked. "Yes." "Sit next to me?" Her voice was melodic, smooth, and surprisingly warm. It carried an authority that made him feel calm instead of afraid. Eli hesitated for only a second. Something in her presence told him that this was an opportunity unlike any other. He placed his hand in hers, and it felt cooler than his skin but not uncomfortable, more like holding a polished stone that seemed alive. She led him gently across the hall, moving as if the crowd parted for her. Heads turned. Some aliens whispered to each other. He realized that the woman leading him was not just any dignitary. She was important. As they reached the platform, Eli could see the entire hall from this higher vantage point. From here, the patterns of movement, the arrangement of people, the interactions of species he had only read about in textbooks were clearer. He realized that, despite all the grandeur and strangeness, there was a kind of order to it. And she had given him a position at the center of it. "Do not be nervous," she said, reading his tension like a book. "I am not your enemy. Sit, watch, listen. That is how understanding begins." Eli nodded, swallowing hard. He had never been given such a direct command by a being so clearly powerful. Yet something about her approach made him want to comply without fear. He sat down next to her, a small chair carved from a translucent material that seemed to flow under the weight of anyone who touched it. "I am Empress Thalira," she said simply. "And you are?" "Eli Parker, human xenobiologist." His words felt formal, almost stilted. She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging him without surprise. "Your species is interesting. You have curiosity and persistence, both qualities that will serve you well here." Eli felt a warmth of pride, but it was tempered by nerves. "Thank you, Your Majesty." She waved a hand dismissively. "Please, call me Thalira. Titles are walls. Walls keep understanding out. Sit beside me and we will begin without them." Eli blinked. The simplicity of her words shocked him. Here was an empress of one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, talking to him like an equal, yet not disrespecting the ceremony around them. The moment felt surreal. A soft chime echoed through the hall, signaling the beginning of the ceremonial part of the evening. Music filled the space, not human music, but something with tones that resonated inside Eli, as though the notes themselves were alive. The aliens moved in unison with it, not in dancing, but in a communication that Eli could almost understand as language through motion. Thalira turned slightly to him. "Watch closely, Eli. There is much to see here that words cannot describe. Learning is not only in listening, but in observing." Eli nodded, his eyes following the movements of the alien leaders. Some gestured with 3 or 4 hands, their motions precise and deliberate. Some emitted soft glows from their skin, signaling agreement or dissent. Eli realized quickly that much of the diplomacy here was visual, not verbal, a form of communication humans rarely practiced. He found himself leaning forward, fascinated. A group of crystalline beings approached a massive console. Light shifted across their facets as they spoke to each other in harmonic tones. They gestured to a chart that Eli could only assume detailed trade routes and resources, and the other dignitaries responded with subtle nods or changes in color. He tried to take notes discreetly, but Thalira stopped him gently. "Do not write everything," she said. "Some understanding is deeper than ink. Feel it, notice it, and remember it." Eli nodded again, amazed. Everything he had learned about diplomacy, interstellar relations, and alien culture seemed simultaneously helpful and inadequate. And yet, sitting next to her, he did not feel like a naive human. He felt like a participant, a witness, and perhaps, just perhaps, a contributor. The evening continued, and Eli slowly began to relax. The initial fear and uncertainty faded as Thalira occasionally leaned toward him, explaining small details in her language, which she translated with careful, melodic tones. She spoke of the history of her people, of their struggles and triumphs, of civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy. "They are not so different from you," she said softly. "The drive to survive, to learn, to connect, those are universal. Your species has not lived as long as some, but you have remarkable adaptability. That is rare." Eli felt a surge of pride. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, thought to be small, fragile, or untested. Yet here, the Empress herself had noticed something he had always felt but never seen recognized: humans' potential. A pause in the ceremony allowed for a moment of quiet. Eli took a deep breath. Around them, the crowd continued its ceremonial motions, but here, beside Thalira, the sounds became almost soothing. He realized he was no longer overwhelmed. He was curious, eager, and even, dare he admit it, confident. Thalira glanced at him with a small smile. "Do you see how even the smallest motion can carry meaning? Every gesture has weight. Every choice echoes further than you might think." "Yes," Eli said quietly, thinking of his own work. Small interactions in ecosystems could have massive consequences. Perhaps the same principle applied here. "And soon," she said, almost as if reading his mind, "you will see that humans are capable of creating influence far beyond your expectations. Your presence here is proof of that. You are not just a spectator, Eli. You are part of a larger story." Eli swallowed. He could feel the weight of her words. He had come to this hub to present research, to observe, and to learn. But sitting here beside the Empress of an alien civilization, he realized his role might be far more significant. The first part of the ceremony ended, and the dignitaries began moving toward their designated seating for the main discussions. Eli felt a quiet excitement. He had arrived alone, unsure, nervous, and now he sat at the center of interstellar attention beside a leader whose respect he had earned, however small a step it was. And it all began with a single, simple act: sitting down. Eli Parker realized that sometimes opportunities arrived in the smallest gestures. And sometimes they arrived in the form of an alien hand reaching out with trust and curiosity, inviting a human to share a place and a story among the stars. Eli Parker sat beside Empress Thalira, his heart still pounding from the surreal experience of the evening. The grand hall had quieted, the main ceremony concluded, and dignitaries were beginning to disperse to smaller, private gatherings. But Eli was not sent away. Instead, Thalira leaned slightly closer, her eyes reflecting a soft, curious light. "You have courage, Eli," she said. "It is not easy to come here, a species barely known, and yet maintain composure." Eli blinked, feeling both nervous and honored. I try to learn, Your Majesty," he said, his voice still cautious. "Call me Thalira," she reminded him gently. "The title is only a wall. And walls, as you humans know, are meant to be crossed when understanding is the goal." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He realized she was inviting him into more than just conversation. She was inviting him into a world of understanding, one that few humans had ever glimpsed. Thalira gestured for him to follow her toward a quiet balcony overlooking the city below. The balcony was open to the stars, and Eli gasped at the sight. Veloria Prime stretched beneath them in vibrant, flowing lights, streets that glimmered like liquid metal, and towering spires that seemed to pierce the sky. Beyond the city, the stars stretched endlessly, so bright it almost hurt to look at them. "This view," Eli whispered. "It's incredible." "Indeed," Thalira said. "But what you see is only the surface. Every light, every shadow carries meaning. The galaxy is not simply a collection of worlds. It is a network of choices, of lives intersecting in ways you cannot yet imagine." Eli tried to absorb her words. He had studied alien life forms, ecosystems, and civilizations, but nothing in his textbooks had prepared him for this perspective. To stand beside an alien leader and see the galaxy as a living, connected web was overwhelming and thrilling. Thalira turned to him, her gaze intense but kind. "I want to show you something few humans have ever seen," she said. "It is not dangerous, but it is important. Come." She led him down a narrow corridor lined with softly glowing panels. The light pulsed gently, in rhythm with the energy of the ship itself. Eli's curiosity rose with every step. He realized that this starcruiser, the Empress personal vessel, was more than a transport. It was a palace, a laboratory, and a home rolled into one. Strange devices hummed quietly, screens displayed patterns he could not begin to understand, and small, floating orbs moved purposefully around the room, responding to their presence. Finally, they arrived at a circular chamber. In the center was a table made of a material that looked like liquid glass, yet solid enough to hold its shape. Holographic projections floated above it, showing star systems, planetary orbits, and streams of data flowing like rivers. Eli could see the positions of dozens of civilizations, some human, many alien, and a few that defied classification. "This is our Council of Knowledge," Thalira explained. "We monitor the galaxy not to control it, but to understand it." "And now, Eli, you are part of that understanding." Eli leaned forward, awestruck. "Me, part of it?" Thalira nodded. "Yes, humans are young in the galaxy, yet you possess traits that many older civilizations have lost. Curiosity, creativity, empathy, these are powerful tools." Eli felt a mix of pride and disbelief. He had never imagined that his species, considered minor by many galactic standards, could be recognized for such qualities. "Eli," Thalira continued, "there are tensions in the galaxy. Factions that do not trust each other, resources that must be shared carefully, knowledge that can be dangerous if misused. You may think these conflicts are distant, but they can touch every world, every life." Eli listened intently, realizing the gravity of her words. He had studied conflict in human history, but this was on a scale beyond imagination. Entire star systems could be affected by the decisions of a few powerful groups. "And yet," Thalira said, her voice softening, "even a single human can make a difference. You have already done so by being here, observing, learning, and choosing to act with thought and integrity." They spoke for hours. Thalira told him stories of civilizations rising and falling, of discoveries that had united species, and of mistakes that had nearly torn worlds apart. Each story carried a lesson. Eli realized that understanding was the key to survival in such a complex galaxy. "Your people," she said, "have survived against odds that many species would consider insurmountable. You adapt, you learn, and you persevere. These qualities make humans valuable allies, not threats." Eli felt a warmth spread through him. Humans were often underestimated, yet here in the presence of an alien empress, he felt the truth of her words. Perhaps his species could indeed play a role in shaping the galaxy, not through conquest, but through intelligence, courage, and empathy. As they spoke, a soft alert sounded. A holographic display shifted, showing the approach of a vessel not listed in the registry. Eli frowned. "Is that an unknown ship?" Thalira's expression remained calm. "It is not hostile, but it is unusual. Some factions prefer to remain hidden until the last moment. They may be curious, cautious, or wary of humans." Eli's mind raced. He had never imagined he would be part of such high-stakes observation. And yet here he was, standing beside the most powerful leader in the galaxy, witnessing events that could ripple across worlds. "The galaxy is a delicate balance," Thalira said, "and humans, though young, can tip that balance for the better or the worse. Your choices, your understanding matter." Eli nodded. I want to help," he said, the words feeling small against the vastness of the stars, yet sincere. Thalira smiled, a gesture that seemed to illuminate the chamber. "Then learn, observe, and prepare. You will not act alone, but your perspective is unique. That is your strength." The unknown vessel continued its approach, and the chamber began to fill with other advisors, aliens of many forms, each bringing reports and insights. Eli realized that he was now part of a team tasked with maintaining peace, understanding, and balance across the galaxy. He felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility. He had come here as a scientist, curious about alien plants and ecosystems. Now he was learning about diplomacy, strategy, and the delicate art of understanding civilizations far older and more complex than his own. Thalira guided him through each step. She introduced him to the advisors, explaining their roles and insights. Eli absorbed everything, asking questions when appropriate, always careful to show respect for the knowledge and experience in the room. Hours passed, yet it felt like minutes. Eli noticed that the more he listened, the more patterns emerged. Conflicts were not always about power, but about misunderstanding. Alliances were built not only on shared resources, but on shared values and mutual respect. And in all of this, he saw a place for humanity. As the session ended, Thalira turned to him. "You have observed much tonight, Eli. Remember that observation is only the beginning. Knowledge without understanding is useless. You must learn not just what is happening, but why." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of her advice. He realized that this was a lesson not only for interstellar diplomacy, but for life itself. The galaxy was vast, complicated, and beautiful, but it was also fragile. And humans, with their curiosity, courage, and empathy, had a chance to be part of its story. "You will rest soon," Thalira said, "but tonight reflect, learn from what you have seen. Tomorrow you may be called to act." Eli looked out at the stars once more. He felt small, yes, but not powerless. For the first time in his life, he understood that being human in a galaxy of stars was not about competing with strength or size. It was about thinking, feeling, and connecting. And sitting beside the Empress, he realized something else. Sometimes, the most profound journeys began not with a step, but with a hand extended in trust. As he finally prepared to leave the chamber, Eli felt a quiet determination growing inside him. He had been given a chance, a rare glimpse into the workings of civilizations far beyond Earth, and he intended to make the most of it. The stars outside shone brightly, and Eli knew that whatever challenges awaited him, he would meet them with the same curiosity, courage, and ingenuity that had brought him here. Humanity had a place among the stars, and he would help prove it, one careful, thoughtful step at a time. Eli Parker woke early the next day aboard Empress Thalira's starcruiser, the gentle hum of the ship beneath him reminding him that he was no longer on Earth, or anywhere. Familiar. The corridors glowed softly, and strange devices pulsed rhythmically as if the ship itself had a heartbeat. He dressed quickly, adjusting his simple uniform and smoothing his hair. Today was not about observation alone. Today he would participate. Thalira awaited him in a chamber overlooking a small planetary system below. Her eyes, like liquid gemstones, reflected the light of distant stars. "Good morning, Eli," she said, her voice melodic, carrying warmth and authority in equal measure. "Today you will see how humans, even young and inexperienced, can contribute in ways many seasoned leaders cannot." Eli swallowed hard. His first task would be in real interstellar diplomacy, a test he had never imagined facing. I'll do my best," he said, trying to steady his voice. Thalira inclined her head. "Your best is enough, but remember, diplomacy is not a contest of power. It is a careful dance of understanding, listening, and choosing the right words." Eli followed her to a large circular chamber filled with representatives from countless civilizations. Some were enormous, towering over the human. Others were tiny, glowing beings that hovered in the air. Their shapes and motions were as diverse as the stars themselves. All turned their attention to the Empress as she entered, Eli beside her. "Leaders of the galaxy," Thalira began, her voice resonating with quiet authority. "We gather to address concerns over the distribution of Velar crystals, a rare resource vital for interstellar travel and planetary sustainability. It is essential that our actions preserve peace, fairness, and life itself." Eli listened closely. Velar crystals were a topic he had heard of in scientific reports, rare, energy-dense, and extremely valuable. He had never imagined he would witness a negotiation over them firsthand. Thalira gestured to Eli. "Eli Parker, human, has observed, learned, and studied the complexities of ecosystems and relationships. His perspective may offer insights that others might overlook." A murmur swept through the room. Eli felt every eye on him, alien or human. Some regarded him with curiosity, others with mild skepticism. He felt his pulse quicken. This was his moment, and also a moment that could either highlight human potential or leave them embarrassed. He took a deep breath. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he began, voice steadying as he spoke. "I have studied ecosystems and relationships on many worlds. I believe that sometimes conflicts over resources arise not because there is not enough, but because the way they are shared is misunderstood." Several beings leaned forward, intrigued. A crystalline delegate shimmered brighter, signaling curiosity, while a six-limbed creature tilted its head in contemplation. Eli continued, "If we approach this problem by understanding the needs and limitations of each species, rather than demanding immediate concessions, we can find a solution that preserves peace and ensures that every civilization can thrive." A pause followed. He realized he had not yet proposed specifics, but sometimes in diplomacy, offering a perspective before solutions was what gained trust. The room remained silent, listening. Eli felt his confidence grow. "I propose a shared system for Velar crystals, one that allocates based on need, sustainability, and willingness to cooperate on joint projects, such as energy research, planetary restoration, and interstellar trade. Each species would contribute knowledge and oversight so that fairness is maintained." A few delegates exchanged glances. One large, armored figure with 4 eyes spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "This is unusual. Never before has a human offered such a plan at this level. Are you certain it can work?" Eli nodded. "I believe it can. Cooperation is a human strength, and if humans can learn from the wisdom of other civilizations while sharing our own knowledge, all parties benefit." Thalira placed a gentle hand on his arm, a signal of support. "The human speaks the truth," she said. "It is not strength alone that maintains balance, but understanding, creativity, and empathy." The armored delegate studied Eli for a long moment, then inclined its head. "Perhaps this human has merit. We will consider the proposal." Another delegate, smaller and more delicate, spoke in a melodic tone. "Yes, this approach could prevent conflict and ensure that no species is left behind. It is hopeful." Eli felt a surge of relief and quiet pride. Hopeful. He realized that in the vast galaxy, hope itself could be a powerful tool, and humans, with their capacity for creativity and empathy, could inspire it. The negotiations continued. Questions came fast, technical, ethical, and practical. Eli relied on what he knew best: careful reasoning, observation, and a willingness to admit when he did not have the answer. He listened more than he spoke, taking note of each species' priorities, fears, and hopes. Slowly, he began to see patterns. Some species valued speed above all else, while others prioritized longevity. Some prized knowledge, others wealth or territory. By identifying these motivations, Eli could suggest compromises that respected everyone's core values. He spoke again. "If we assign responsibilities based on expertise and rotate oversight among civilizations, we can prevent hoarding and reduce misunderstandings. Transparency and shared participation will allow each species to trust the process, rather than fearing exploitation." A soft murmur of agreement spread through the room. Several delegates nodded or shifted colors, a sign Eli had come to understand as positive feedback. Even the skeptical armored figure inclined slightly, acknowledging the merit of the plan. As the session continued, Eli realized something important. Humans, though physically weaker and younger than most galactic civilizations, had an advantage. They could think creatively, adapt quickly, and approach problems with empathy. These qualities allowed them to see solutions that others, bound by tradition or ego, often missed. Hours passed, and the negotiations reached a critical point. A faction that had previously been quiet spoke, raising objections and threatening to leave the council. Eli could see the tension rise. This moment could spark conflict if handled poorly. He leaned slightly toward Thalira, who whispered, "Do what you have learned. Listen, understand, and offer clarity where needed." Eli nodded, took a deep breath, and addressed the faction. "I understand your concerns. You fear that shared control might reduce your influence and benefits. But if you work with the system, you will not lose power. You will gain stability, predictability, and trust from other species. The goal is not to diminish any one civilization, but to strengthen all. You can have both security and respect." The faction's leader, a serpentine being with translucent skin and deep amber eyes, paused. "You speak differently than expected. Most humans are quiet observers, or," it hesitated, "naive." Eli smiled slightly. "Perhaps, but we have learned that listening, understanding, and choosing carefully can accomplish what force cannot." The room fell silent. Slowly, the faction leader inclined its head. "Then we will test this system. If your words hold human, then we will follow." Eli allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The first major test had been successful, but he knew this was only the beginning. Diplomacy, like any ecosystem, required constant attention, adjustment, and care. One misstep and conflict could erupt. Thalira watched him closely, her expression unreadable. When the meeting ended, she finally spoke. "You did well, Eli. You listened, you observed, and you acted with thought. That is what humans do best when they choose to." Eli felt a warmth in his chest. Recognition from her was more meaningful than he could express. He had started this journey uncertain, intimidated, and nervous. Now he had earned the respect of beings who had lived for thousands of years, who commanded entire civilizations. As the delegates departed, Eli realized another truth. Humans could build bridges where others saw walls. Strength alone was not the measure of influence. Understanding, empathy, and intelligence were equally, if not more powerful. Thalira turned to him. "Eli, remember this. You are not here because you are strong or because you are human. You are here because you are willing to learn, to adapt, and to act with integrity. That is why your species has a future in this galaxy." Eli nodded, feeling the weight and promise of her words. He had learned that courage was not always about grand gestures or bold moves. Sometimes, courage was about listening when others spoke, understanding when others assumed, and acting when others hesitated. The Starcruiser hummed beneath them as they walked toward the observation deck. Eli gazed at the stars, each one a reminder of the lives, hopes, and civilizations that depended on careful choices. And for the first time, he felt that humanity, though young, fragile, and untested, could truly make a difference. Tonight, he had not only observed diplomacy. He had participated. He had proven that humans could think, understand, and act in ways that changed outcomes. And he knew that this was just the beginning of a journey that would stretch far beyond his imagination. As he stood beside Thalira, overlooking the vastness of space, Eli Parker realized something extraordinary. Humans were no longer merely passengers in the galaxy. They were participants, capable of shaping events through thought, courage, and empathy. And sitting beside the Empress, he felt the full weight of responsibility and possibility that awaited him. The Starcruiser glided silently above a small, uncharted planet, its engines humming like a quiet heartbeat beneath Eli Parker's feet. He followed Empress Thalira through narrow corridors, their soft, glowing walls pulsing gently with energy. The corridors were familiar to her, of course, but every curve, every panel fascinated him. He noticed devices that seemed to respond to thoughts, panels that displayed streams of data flowing like liquid light, and small hovering drones that moved in elegant patterns, almost like living creatures. "Where are we going?" Eli asked, his curiosity impossible to contain. "To my private chambers," Thalira replied, her tone calm. "You have proven yourself in observation and diplomacy. Now you will see more of the galaxy and more of what humans can achieve if they choose to." Eli's heart quickened. The previous day's events had already stretched the boundaries of what he thought possible. Today promised even more. When they reached a large chamber, Eli stopped in awe. The room was circular, with walls made of transparent material that revealed the glowing expanse of the cosmos beyond. Stars, nebulae, and distant planets shone brilliantly, as if the universe itself had paused to observe them. In the center of the chamber floated a holographic table displaying star systems, trade routes, and streams of information that moved like rivers of light. "This is," Eli began, but words failed him. "Your observation is correct," Thalira said with a faint smile. "This is a map of the galaxy's current balance of power, resources, and alliances. What you see is not static. It shifts constantly, influenced by every action and decision made across thousands of worlds." Eli leaned closer, examining the flows of information. He noticed patterns, clusters of activity, gaps in communication, and zones where tension seemed unusually high. His mind raced. He had studied ecosystems and networks before, but here was a living, moving web of civilizations, every action and reaction interconnected. "Some of these tensions," Thalira continued, "pose risks not just to one planet or species, but to entire sectors. You have already seen how humans can provide insight and diplomacy. Now I want to show you another challenge." Before he could ask, the table shifted, highlighting a cluster of star systems under threat. A faction, previously quiet and unseen, had begun mobilizing resources and ships near the borders of multiple civilizations. Their movements were subtle, calculated, but unmistakable. "Who are they?" Eli asked, pointing. "They are the Veilri," Thalira explained. "A secretive faction that prefers to manipulate events from the shadows. They are intelligent, cautious, and patient. They often act quietly, but when their plans succeed, the consequences are far-reaching." Eli felt a knot in his stomach. He had faced challenging negotiations yesterday, but this was different. This was a threat that could ripple across the galaxy. "You want me to what?" Eli asked carefully. "I want you to help me understand them," Thalira said. "Their motives, their methods, and their potential vulnerabilities. Humans have a way of seeing patterns others overlook. Your perspective is valuable." Eli nodded. Despite the fear rising in his chest, he felt a surge of determination. "I will do my best." Thalira led him to a console that allowed access to historical records of the Veilri. Eli began to study their movements, strategies, and communications. He noticed something subtle. Their actions were consistent with an ancient strategy pattern, one designed to destabilize alliances quietly rather than engage in open conflict. "You see it?" Thalira asked. "Yes," Eli said, pointing. "They avoid direct confrontation. They exploit gaps in trust and communication. They are patient predators waiting for mistakes." Thalira's eyes gleamed with approval. "Exactly, and patience alone does not grant success. Observation, foresight, and careful action are needed to counter them." Eli realized that he was beginning to think like a strategist, not just a scientist. He could see how diplomacy, observation, and reasoning combined to prevent conflicts before they even began. "Your humans are underestimated," Thalira said softly. "Because your species is young, others assume you lack experience. But in reality, your ability to think flexibly, to adapt, and to act with curiosity gives you an advantage." Eli felt both pride and responsibility. He had never imagined humans would be considered valuable in interstellar strategy. Yet here, beside an Empress whose wisdom spanned centuries, he saw that humanity's strengths were being recognized. Hours passed as they studied the Veilri's movements and predicted their next steps. Thalira encouraged him to propose solutions, test strategies, and question assumptions. Eli realized that in many ways this was like studying an alien ecosystem. Every action caused a reaction, every decision had consequences, and understanding the balance was essential. Finally, he spoke. "If we alert the affected civilizations discreetly and offer support in a way that strengthens trust rather than fear, we can prevent the Veilri from exploiting divisions. Transparency, combined with cooperation, could neutralize their advantage." Thalira nodded. "Precisely. You see patterns, not just facts. You consider consequences, not just actions. This is the essence of diplomacy and strategy." Suddenly, an alert sounded. A small craft approached the starcruiser, unidentified. Eli watched as it moved cautiously, scanning the area. His heart beat faster. He had seen enough to know that even minor anomalies could signal danger. Thalira studied the display calmly. "The Veilri often test boundaries before acting. This may be one of their scouts observing our ship." Eli leaned closer. "Should we intercept?" We observe first, Thalira said. Reaction without understanding is dangerous. Humans often act impulsively. You, however, have learned restraint, and that is why you are here. The craft continued its approach, but maintained a distance. Eli noticed something remarkable. Its movements mirrored patterns they had seen before in Veilry behavior. He pointed it out to Thalira. They are cautious. They want to gather information without confrontation. That is consistent with their strategy. Exactly, Thalira said. And because you noticed it, we can plan accordingly. Observation allows us to anticipate, not merely react. Eli felt a thrill of accomplishment. For the first time, he realized that humans, often underestimated for their size and age, could contribute unique insight that even advanced civilizations might overlook. As the craft eventually withdrew, the tension in the chamber eased. Thalira smiled. You have done well today, not by strength, not by intimidation, but by thought, careful observation, and reasoning. These are tools humans wield better than many give them credit for. Eli felt a quiet pride. He had come to the galaxy seeking knowledge, and now he was creating knowledge, shaping events, and contributing in ways he had never imagined. Thalira gestured to the viewing window, where the planet below shimmered under starlight. There is more to see, Eli, more to learn. But remember, trust is as important as observation. Without it, knowledge is useless. Sit, watch, and consider this. Eli settled near her side. He reflected on everything he had learned. Diplomacy required listening and understanding. Strategy required observation and foresight. And most importantly, trust, between species, between leaders, between humans and aliens, was the foundation of peace. He thought of Earth, of humanity's struggles, and of how small mistakes could ripple into larger consequences. Yet he also realized that humans had strengths the galaxy often overlooked: creativity, empathy, and the courage to act thoughtfully even when uncertain. Eli, Thalira said, breaking his thoughts, your presence here is a testament to what humans can achieve. You have not only observed, you have influenced, guided, and protected. That is no small feat. Eli looked at her astonished. I'm just one person. And yet one person can shape countless outcomes, she said. Humans have a unique capacity to see possibilities that others cannot. That is why you are valuable, and why your species will matter in the years to come. Eli felt a surge of determination. He had started this journey unsure of his place, intimidated by civilizations far older and more powerful than his own. Now he realized that humans were not only participants but potential leaders, capable of bridging divides, fostering understanding, and shaping the galaxy for the better. The Starcruiser continued to glide silently above the planet, its engines a constant reminder of motion and progress. Eli and Thalira remained at the observation deck, watching the stars, considering possibilities, and planning carefully. For the first time, Eli understood the full weight of responsibility and the full depth of opportunity. Humans were young, yes, but their combination of intelligence, courage, and empathy gave them a role in shaping events far beyond their home world. And sitting beside the Empress, he realized that trust, once given and respected, could open doors no power could force open. Tonight he would rest, but tomorrow the work would continue. More factions, more secrets, more challenges awaited. And Eli Parker, human, would face them with the skills he had learned: observation, thought, empathy, and courage. The galaxy was vast, full of mystery and danger, but also full of opportunity. And humans, young, adaptable, and persistent, were beginning to show that they belonged among the stars. Sitting beside the Empress, Eli felt the quiet thrill of potential, the weight of responsibility, and the certainty that humanity's story in the galaxy had only just begun. Eli Parker woke to the soft hum of the Starcruiser, the stars outside the observation window glimmering like scattered diamonds. Today was different. He could feel it in the way the ship vibrated gently, in the soft light that pulsed through the corridors, and in the quiet energy that seemed to flow from Empress Thalira herself. Eli, Thalira's voice called from the chamber ahead. It is time. He straightened his uniform and followed her, his mind racing with everything he had learned in the past days. Observation, diplomacy, strategy, trust, all had prepared him for this moment. Today, the galaxy would see what humans could do, not as observers, not as minor players, but as active participants shaping the future. The chamber was vast, larger than any hall Eli had ever seen. Representatives from countless civilizations had gathered. Some were massive, with intricate exoskeletons, others small, almost ethereal. Their attention was focused on the center of the room, where a grand table floated above the floor. Holographic images displayed trade routes, fleets, and planetary data. Thalira led Eli to a seat beside her. For the first time, he felt the weight of history in a physical way. The presence of so many leaders, each responsible for countless lives, each capable of shaping events that could span centuries. Eli, Thalira whispered, what you do here may prevent disaster, but you are not alone. You have learned, you have observed, and now you act. Remember, humans succeed not by force, but by understanding. Eli nodded. His mind raced through the past days, negotiating over Velar crystals, observing the Veilry, understanding patterns and motivations. Each lesson had prepared him for this critical moment. A soft alarm pulsed across the chamber. The holographic display shifted, highlighting a fleet of Veilry ships entering the sector. Their movements were precise, deliberate. They were testing, probing for weakness, looking for cracks in the fragile alliances. This is the moment, Thalira said calmly. Act with thought and humanity will be remembered. Eli took a deep breath. He had observed patterns before, and now he had to predict actions in real time. He studied the Veilry fleet, noting their formation and probable strategy. Then he turned to the council. We must act, he said, his voice steady despite the tension. But not with force. The Veilry thrive on fear and division. If we show unity, transparency, and cooperation, they cannot exploit us. I propose coordinated communication and defensive alignment among all affected civilizations. Each species contributes what they can, monitoring, intelligence, and support. No one acts alone. A pause filled the chamber. Some delegates exchanged uncertain glances. One large, armored alien spoke in a deep tone. And you believe this will stop them? Eli nodded firmly. Yes, this is not about confrontation. This is about strength through understanding and showing that the galaxy is unified. Another delegate, delicate and glowing, added, it is hopeful, but it may work. Humans often see solutions others overlook. Eli felt a surge of pride. He had learned to value humans' unique abilities, observation, reasoning, empathy, and creativity. Now they could demonstrate their worth on a galactic stage. He moved quickly, coordinating messages to various species, fleets. With Thalira's guidance, he suggested strategic placements, shared intelligence, and communication protocols to prevent confusion. Each action was measured, precise, and based on understanding rather than fear. The Veilry ships continued their advance, testing boundaries and seeking openings. But the Allied fleets responded not with panic or aggression, but with calm coordination. Humans' insight had helped anticipate moves, predict reactions, and create a network of readiness that surprised even the most experienced alien commanders. Eli watched the fleet movements on the holographic display, feeling a mix of tension and exhilaration. The Veilry paused, then began to withdraw. Their careful probing had failed. Their strategy of subtle exploitation had been anticipated and neutralized. A murmur of relief ran through the chamber. Delegates whispered, nodded, and exchanged gestures of respect. The Veilry fleet retreated quietly, their mission unsuccessful. Thalira placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. You see the impact of careful thought and human perspective? You have prevented what could have been a catastrophe. Eli exhaled slowly. The reality of it sank in. Humans, small, young, and underestimated, had played a crucial role in preserving peace in the galaxy. The Empress stood and addressed the council. Leaders of the galaxy, we have witnessed what cooperation, understanding, and thoughtful action can achieve. Humans, though new to our circles, have contributed insight, courage, and perspective that prevented conflict. Let this be remembered. Intelligence and empathy are as powerful as fleets and technology. Eli felt a warmth in his chest. He had come as an observer, nervous and uncertain. Now he was recognized for his contributions, not as a human novelty, but as a thoughtful participant capable of influencing the fate of countless worlds. Delegates approached him cautiously, curious about the human who had guided actions in this critical moment. Questions were asked, opinions shared, and for the first time, humans were seen as worthy allies, capable partners, and contributors to galactic stability. One delegate, a massive being with flowing luminescent robes, leaned down to Eli. Your species remarkable. You act with thought, not pride. You see patterns that even our scholars miss. Humans are valuable. Eli nodded, humbled and honored. He realized that humanity's strengths were finally being recognized: adaptability, empathy, creativity, and the courage to act responsibly. Thalira smiled beside him. "You have proven today that humans can be more than observers. You can shape outcomes." And that is only the beginning. The council session ended, but Eli knew the real work had only begun. He would continue to advise, observe, and guide, ensuring that humans remained a force for understanding and cooperation, not domination or destruction. Later, as the Star Cruiser glided back toward Veloria Prime, Eli reflected on everything that had happened. He thought of Earth, of humanity's struggles, of the potential they carried. If one human could influence events on a galactic scale, what could humanity achieve collectively? Thalira approached him. "Eli, today you sat beside history, not merely as a guest but as an active participant. You have demonstrated what humans can do: observe, understand, act wisely, and influence outcomes for the greater good. This is why we value your species." Eli felt a quiet pride. I never imagined humans could have this kind of impact," he admitted. "You underestimate yourselves," Thalira said. "Your curiosity, your persistence, and your empathy are rare. Use them wisely, and your species will leave a lasting mark on the galaxy." Eli realized that this journey had changed him. He had begun as a young scientist, unsure of his place among alien civilizations. Now he stood as a representative of humanity's potential, a bridge between species, and a symbol of what humans could accomplish through thought and courage. That night, as he looked out at the stars from the Starcruiser's observation deck, Eli felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Humans were small in the galaxy, yes, but they were capable of greatness in ways that did not require dominance or aggression. They could think, learn, empathize, and act wisely, and in doing so they could shape history. He turned to Thalira. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the infinite stars. "No, Eli, thank you for showing what humanity is capable of. Remember this: trust is a gift, and when combined with courage and understanding, it can change the course of worlds." Eli nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had learned that greatness was not always measured by strength, speed, or technology. It was measured by the capacity to understand, to act wisely, and to connect with others, even across the vastness of space. As the Starcruiser descended toward Veloria Prime, Eli felt a quiet exhilaration. Today, humans had shown their potential. Today, he had seen the galaxy in ways he could never have imagined. And today, he had proved that a single human, guided by curiosity, courage, and empathy, could influence the course of history. He realized one simple truth: humanity's story among the stars was just beginning. And for Eli Parker, sitting next to the Empress, witnessing the galaxy in motion, and being part of decisions that shaped countless worlds, he knew that humanity's potential was limitless. For the first time, he felt not just human, but a citizen of the galaxy, capable, courageous, and ready for the adventures to come.